Hello, everyone. Let's give 2 more minutes for folk to gather, and we'll get started.
Hey, let's just let you know it's the December 4th, right? So you get stuff going into November 27th.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, because we skipped the. Am I sharing my screen? No, I wasn't sharing my screen yet, but I see. Okay, yeah, I see where you got this. Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
Yeah, because November 27 was skipped. Okay, well, 3 minutes in. I don't know exactly.
Hi, Lexi.
Oh, hey, Sana. Oh, great, you're here. I was actually
I'm
looking
sorry,
for
guys.
you or
I'm late.
Kaushik to be on the call. No worries.
Hi, everyone. Alexi, are we going to get started or we are waiting for someone?
No, I was waiting rather for you and Kaushik, but if you're there and you believe we can get started, then I'm good as well.
I think we can get started. I was already running late joining the meeting. First of all, congratulations, Alexi, on the vice chair elections. Very happy to see you there, and we're excited to work together. We have to follow up on a couple of action items. Anybody else is wishing congratulations to Alexi?
Thank you, Sana.
Thank you.
No, I also look forward to working with everybody here on the call and the whole SIG as a whole. I also really want to work with Suri, who was, putting his name as well as vice chair. I know Tal speak of some of the methodologies Suri has, and I really want to make sure we can benefit from his experience as well. So I will reach out and make sure that we can have him engaged as well.
Absolutely, that would be perfect. And I'm also still relying on Kaushik and his feedback in a lot of things. Some of the things that we have started this year around how we are keeping our notes and how we're keeping our action items. I think Kaushik started the document, and it's still valuable to get his feedback into a lot of things that we are doing. So that's a good call, Alexi. Let's continue working like that. And let's pick up our notes from the last meeting. Alexi, I remember that you were hosting the last meeting, so if you don't mind sharing the notes. I was thinking first we go through the action items that are actually pending on us and some of the other community members, and then we go into the working group updates. Does it look right to you, Alexi?
Yeah, there are a couple of things really that we need to cover, and a lot of action item. And so, I mean, between now and last time we met with the whole group, I can't say we necessarily took any step to, at least on the SIG one, chair, vice chair, to take some action on the process improvement bucket. But this is an area where I hope we can have a little bit of time to discuss towards the end.
Absolutely, that sounds perfect.
Do you want me to run with this, Sana?
Yeah, let's run with this and let's reassign the action owners or the time, update the time so that it's reflective of this meeting outcome.
All right, so hopefully, folks, you can see my screen. I'm just going to put the chat if there is anything. So yeah, ETA November 20, I guess we're past the timeline, but and Sana, it's good we have you on the call. So write a process document for the nephew release planning process across the SIGs. So last time we met, I wasn't exactly sure what this was about and who was the owner for this. He wasn't assigned, and what exactly do we meant by this sentence? It's
Yeah,
not very clear to
will.
me. So
I will explain the background to you, Alexei. So basically, there was a meeting like this. We were brainstorming on ideas. How should the working groups produce next release user stories? And you know, we discussed a template that was given by um, Balaji, and we reviewed that. So things like that, we wanted to put in a structure. So all working groups create their user stories. We build SIG architecture, SIG automation group together for the RX planning group, which is the next release planning group from 2 to 3 weeks before the next release's requirements time. So this is a discussion that still has to happen. On a high level, we have some good ideas. We need to just document them, and you put the right action owners in front of it. We have to work with Sudhi, we have to work with Kaushik, anybody else from the community who's interested in helping out laying this document. Should be a quick session where we produce a document and then we keep it as reference for ourselves and how we are planning every release, gathering stories and channeling them for the next release prep work.
Yeah, no, that sounds good, and that's part of the process improvement also we highlighted. So Sana, I'm going to put you and myself as the owner of this, and I can get started between now and next week to put something together, and then we'll leave it to the community for review. So that way we make progress here, and we can track it. Okay. November 28th, so that's due as well. Sana Kashif, high-level scope for UX. Working group 4 leads can take the ownership of those goals. So last time we did discuss quite a bit actually on this item. I don't know if we have Sandeep or Bernard in the call, but I think some work was being done here to try to converge. I don't know if we have Sandeep on the call or Bernard on the call.
Yeah, Sandeep here.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we worked with Bernard and got a lot of comments on that, the user requirement which I have shared. And today I just sent I think 4 user stories which I thought can be part of the R3, and we can discuss on that. And I've shared in the link down, I think somewhere, UX4 group.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so I think this is good then. So we have converged and we have the user stories. So now and I know it's here, so it's a matter of just reviewing them.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sandeep.
Thank you.
And the other one that is due for, I think that's just an oversight from me, was December 4th, from Tal and Bernard and others, document the current state of modeling work, preferably on the Nephew wiki, as we said. So I don't know if that has been done.
It has not been done. People are waiting on me. But yeah, I'm aware of the date, and I believe it'll be done by tomorrow for the meeting. So I'm working on it today. I'm just not done.
Okay, so
yeah.
perfect. Okay.
Alexei, I'm hearing you twice, and myself as well. I don't know if it's just my problem or someone else's too.
I think it's me. I'll mute when I'm not talking.
Okay.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you, Tal. And between now and then, if there is anything I can help with, just let me know. But it's great to hear and of course, I assume this is not something completely fleshed out. This is the initial work, right, from which we can iterate. So thank you, Tal. Okay, so let's jump into the working group updates.
Alexei, one more. Before we jump into the working group updates, there are a few more action items that I want to bring here so that we don't miss tracking them, especially for you and I to do the housekeeping work effectively. I remember I spoke to the community that I do want to update the time for the SIG architecture meetings. I was waiting for the election results so that I could work with the right stakeholder to sit together and find the new time slot. So that's one action item on you and me. We'll work through that this week to find the right time slots that work for your time zone, my time zone, and the rest of the community members. Has to be moved from Monday to another day. And then there is one more meeting invite that I was supposed to schedule, which is missed in this list, as the working group architecture. meetings have to be scheduled, and the same action item, we'll have to work on that. I had volunteered to start leading the group discussions, but I was just waiting for this meeting to set up so that I can find another alternate time for that meeting. So that also has to go into this bucket of things.
Okay. Perfect. So let's get a poll maybe for this one.
Okay.
To identify, I'm just going to change it. We can make this a poll. Let's sync you and I, and then let's make a poll.
Okay, perfect.
And then for working group 1, well, likewise, let's make a
We'll
poll.
gather volunteers, additional volunteers. So additional volunteers are still welcome to put their names on the document where the working groups discussion is happening. I'll resend the link again on the Slack channel. If you can put your names there, we'll then create a poll and gather your feedback in making sure that we find a time that works for most of the audience of this group.
Okay. And we have quite a good list here already. So if you want to be part of the poll, folks, for working group 1, please put your name here, and we'll get that going.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so I guess we addressed also the working group 1 updates. Nothing started really at this point.
That's right.
Okay, great. So the working group 2, Tim, if you want to provide us with a quick update.
Yeah, so as we discussed, we do have within the ORAN integration, we do have completed the deployment architecture that we're going to have for release 3, and we have a link to that there. Okay, I don't have a link there, but there's a link there. If you go to the working group 2, you see the deployment architecture. It's in the slide deck that's there. And then we also have the use cases and the objectives that we're going to do for release 3. Yeah, so that's the deployment architecture.
I just want to do you want to
Yeah,
comment it
sure.
for 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure. So this is the release 3 deployment architecture. There's a couple things. If you see, we have both in ORAN, we have both Nepio-enabled services in the SMO, and we've got some Nepio-enabled services that would be part of what ORAN considers to be the O cloud in order to deploy certain ORAN network functions, which is on the right-hand side. And so this is where we think are the Nepio touch points are necessarily to do the deployment. So that's for release 3. There's also 2 other deployment types that we're also going to investigate in release 3, and that's in slide 4 and slide 5. They're different variations of what we would consider to be the clustering deployments. And so we want to look at these other ones as well because we think they might have some, well, they're different variations, but the one in slide 3 is the primary one that we're going after.
Thank you, Tim.
And then we do have the objectives and use cases that we've identified as well, which is the use case. I guess that's right there. And if you go into the presentation, and so what we did is we started with objectives. There you go. And this is what you're going to see in release 3. Now, the interesting thing for ORAN integration is there's actually 3 groups that are really coming together 3 open source organizations that are coming together to realize this, both the Nepio, ORAN, the ORAN software community, and OAI. And so we kind of had to split things up into those 3 areas, where those 3 areas would contribute. But we looked at the fact that we wanted to do these objectives for release 3. We're going to realize some of these components, like we talked about POCOM and IMS and those interfaces between them. We'll have proof of concepts for that, and then we'll see deployments of ORAN NFs using the SMO. So we'll be able to deploy what you see in release 2, they don't use the SMO, but we want to use the SMO for at least one of them for release 3. And then we'll talk about these other deployment variants and or investigate in release 3. Then we also have some requirements that we want to do. We want to provide working group 5 with some of the service assurance. We're not doing necessarily service assurance based stuff in release 3. So we want to provide some requirements to them. And then there's a stretch goal of how we can realize some of the work that Nepio is doing with the O1 in future works. So that's the objectives for release 3. When you break that down into use cases, what you see is you see greater elements here that we talked about what we're going to do with FOCOM. We're going to do OCloud registration and initialization. We're going to create and delete a cluster. The next one was go ahead and deploy an ORAN NF, where we'll also instantiate the deployment and terminate it. And the next one is, next slide, is really talking about which deployments of the NFs. So we're going to deploy these various NFs from OSC. What you're going to see different than what's in release 2 is we're going to have the near real-time RIC with some XFs on top of that. We're also going to do a reconfiguration of the NF capacity. And then we'll investigate again the O1 interface. And so if you go back to the main thing, what you'll find is you'll find user stories for all these.
Oh, here.
These are the 5, 6 user stories that are going to be part of release 3. We're going to create, delete the cluster. We're going to deploy it without an SMO. We're going to deploy it with an SMO. We're going to do registration of the OCloud, and then we're going to do the reconfiguration. So all that drilled down into 3 use cases, and these are doing the user stories based upon the template. So that's what we're going to be doing in December, is actually filling out and agreeing to these user stories. If you look at them, I think half of them have been started, and then the other half have not. There's some templates there, that ones that haven't, and then there's some that have started already. So, but that's going to be our focus in December. That's it.
So Tim, all these user stories on the list are actually the potential candidate for going into R3, and the RX planning group, in my understanding, RX planning group will review the feasibility and potential possibility of including this in R3. But that's your recommendation for R3 for the working group side, correct?
From the working group side, yeah, that's what they, after we had all the discussions, they said, yep, this was what we think makes sense for our.
Awesome.
Thanks, Tim. I think that's great. The one thing that I'll maybe ask, if possible, is for the working group to prioritize these as they go into the future planning for R3, right? We need to ensure we understand.
I think that should be a part of the template. If we're following the template, maybe on the template, there should be like a priority heading somewhere.
Well, there is something about priority,
okay.
but it's not clear. So it's high, medium.
Low.
No,
I guess
high.
I guess I should just do 1 through 6 on these. High,
yeah, that would be
2.
that would make
in front of,
our life easier. Yes.
Yeah. In front of high, you could say 2 of 6, 1 of 6, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll talk to the guys about that.
So what I'll
but
say
that's got to be a group decision. So the fact that they still have to be decided by the group, and I'll make sure they segment them into high, medium, low, and then high 1, high 2, high 3. We'll do that work.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, this is very well put. So thank you. Okay. Anything from the team here about ORAN, the architecture, or the use cases? Any questions anyone has? All right. So moving on to working group 3. So last time, oh no, RX scope and user stories. So last time I was asking,
hey, Alexis, I'm sorry. Is Wim on? Do we know?
I can't see. Hang
on. I'm here.
Hey, Wim. So I think one of the things that the group doesn't know yet you gave us a list of deliverables that you want to do by the end of January, but I don't know what template format or anything to put that into. Could you do me a favor? If you guys don't have that documented, that's great, but could you attend one of the working group 2 ORAN meetings and talk about what your expectations are for each of these so the guys know what they're looking forward to in January?
Yeah, my problem is the timing of the meeting, to be honest, because I have a meeting that I need to attend at the same time these days.
So
I
let's
have a
we can take it offline, Wim, but I think, Tim, you're talking about these things, right?
Yeah, those things there, right? So we said we provide network architecture automation, these things, right? But I'm going to need someone from network automation to describe what their expectations are for these things.
See, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at a high level, right? So the first thing that you need to do is, okay, you have to segment it into deliverable components, in my view, right? That we need to, so for example, you say, I extend this component or I add this component, right? So that's the first thing. You need to come up with a data model, most likely, right? Which is part of what I at least my personal view is what we didn't do very well in R2, which we did most better in R1, is we defined our data model from day one, whereas in R2, we actually defined it 2 weeks ago. And so you see that, so these type of things are important because everything is depending on it. So that's for me part of what I call architecture and so on. So you have to basically segment the whole problem space into things that you are going to that you believe you need to do, and we have to discuss that somehow between SIG 2 and SIG 1. And that's going to be determining the scope and the effort and all of that stuff. Because right now, what you have, I think, in my view, you have use cases. But the question is, what is the amount of work needed to establish that and accomplish that? And do we have the people? And so we need to look at all of these aspects.
Yeah, but so we provided for release 2. I know that Sager provided you with a list of collateral, information, on the deployment architectures, components, and stuff like that. So I was going to provide.
I think in R2 we just created user stories, right?
No, he had deployment architectures. Maybe you guys weren't aware of them. That would be not good. But so all right.
For R2,
so
you
anyway,
mean?
Yeah,
Okay,
for R2.
From a SIG 1 point of view?
Coming from Sager's point of view, when he gave you some stuff, right?
But so maybe yes, I can chime in, if I may, briefly, because what you're asking.
SIG 1, right? That didn't come from SIG 1.
No, it did not. But I don't think so. I don't think it did. But what you're asking, Tim, is really, define the process for what's next when the user stories are defined. So I know it's a bit more than this. You want what do we need? Right now we have user story, but okay, what's next? And what do we need to enable SIG2 to properly make the prioritization into the task and so on. So, and I think that's part of that working group here. So I don't think that's completely fleshed out. And maybe I'm just going to copy paste this because we need to identify these aspects. But I'm seeing this as part of a working group 3 deliverable. What is the process, right?
Yeah, I don't care from a working standpoint. I'm going to let you know though that I would expect that the team will want to start developing whatever artifacts come up with or decide on probably at the beginning of the year, right? We'll be done with our user stories for ORAN. We're hopefully done with our user stories by the end of December. So what I wanted to do is make sure I was able to seed them with what their next set of deliverables would look like for the design stage, right?
Okay. So I'm capturing something like this. Team, I might ping you. Wim, I might ping you guys. I'm going to take that action and I'll follow up.
Yeah, and it looks like you got some hands up. So I guess I
Okay. Sorry.
generated some comments. So
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, who's on next? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was next.
Sana.
Okay. Yeah, Tall, well, and speaking, unmute, and then when you speak, then of course unmute yourself again. Something with the echo there. So for the work group 3, I know that we are discussing the plannings for the next release at the moment, and that's also cross-pollinating with some of the work that working group 1 is supposed to help with, which is falling behind. So some of the cross-pollination of the working group 3 efforts, we'll sort that out as well. Alexi, maybe that's a discussion that when we finalize the scope and the work, we can review that as well. The cross-pollination between the working groups. That was an action item on myself and Kaushik, which we thought is an evolutionary process, and we have to keep an eye on that as we are making more progress into this. So another big action item for the work group 3 is also the time planning. When is the next release scheduled? And I know that's in your discussion at the bottom, Alexi, but I thought maybe let's discuss some of that right now as we are on the working group 3 at the moment. So when is the next release planned? How soon can we establish the work group 3? So the idea behind the work group 3 was an ad hoc group that would be created in the next release requirements discussion, with the combination of SIG architecture and SIG automation volunteers working together, who are going to receive the inputs on all user stories from all working groups, and then sit together and create a feasible recommendation to the SIG automation, who can then absorb that for the next release. So we have to work on the timing, and we have to work backwards. Maybe right now is the time to kick off these ad hoc meetings, and I'm not sure if I'm taking this time effectively, but when is the next release planned? By which time do we have to have the requirements firmed? So we need at least 2 weeks for this working group 3 ad hoc meetings to process the requirements and create some useful documentation for SIG automation to absorb for the next release. That has to happen now. We are already in December. So I'm just trying to ask again. So Tall, if you can input into that, or where anybody from SIG automation can help us be on track, that's something we have.
Well, yeah, maybe a little related to that, I'll add. By the way, I hope there's no echo right now. I changed microphones.
Yes,
is it better?
Yes, it's good now.
Okay, great. So I wanted to point out, what Tim was saying regarding resources starting to work in January, and how much people would be able to work on it. It's a very small point maybe, but let's call this, please, design for R3 plus rather than just R3. I've been encouraging us generally to think of our release cadence as continuous. Right, we'll be able to release in R3, well, whatever people will be able to work on, right? We have a lot of things on our plate, and it really depends on volunteers and where people want to contribute. So we can't, from SIG2's perspective, we can't guarantee that all the use cases will be available or fully fleshed out. Some might be less than others. We'll have to prioritize, right, internally once we see all the use cases. I think that would be okay, right? I hope it would be okay from the work group's perspective too, that it will be great to have designs, and the designs can be iterated on, and whether or not all of those designs will make it to R3 really depends on our availability. So I think just designing it with R3 plus in mind could be a good idea. And part of the reason for this is I think in SIG2 we've both release 1 and release 2 have been kind of in crunch mode. It took us, by the time we start working, we already have to plan on ending the work, right? So we end up having like a 3-month window basically where we develop, and we had 3 months windows where we were kind of cleaning things up and not working with a clear design in mind. So I hope all of us can reach a better cadence moving forward, and continuous design and continuous development, right? And whatever makes it into the R3 timeline would be great. We'll definitely do our best, and we'll work together on this. Once we have the designs, we'll come back with our plan of action to implement those designs as best we can. And yeah, that's how I see it. I wonder if that works, if that makes sense from your perspective, Sana.
Okay, so this is my follow-up question now. I really like the continuous mode rather than the waterfall that we have been traditionally following. And I do remember that the R2 planning was a nightmare. And if you recall those meetings, because we were under a crunch of time, we had lots of ideas. We did not know how to present those ideas in a format that would be consumable by SIG automation. And even after all those long discussions, what we produced was not really the form that could have been absorbed very well with SIG automation. And we received a lot of feedback that the process requires a significant amount of improvement. So now we are again at that stage where we have some ideas evolving. You saw the progress from working group 2. We have a format in which we are producing the user stories. I'm just wondering, would this be a good time to start the ad hoc meetings for the work group 3 and start flushing out the user stories, no matter when is the next release, but at least have some of that discussion going now? Or should that happen at a later stage? I'm just trying to make a decision on this working group 3 meeting.
Yeah, I think it can all be done in parallel. You know, there's nothing is blocking anything else. So it's really people's availability and energy.
Should we do like a meeting every 2 weeks rather than in a firefighting mode of like every week? Like every 2 weeks, they review, they flush out the user stories, prioritize them, put them in a short-term channel and longer-term bucket, and that work keeps on happening in a continuous mode rather than waiting for the next release and doing it closer to the release and then not doing at all. Like it's just a proposal. How should the cadence be working for this?
I think it's a good idea, and we already have user stories available for SIG 1 as a whole to review, right? And we're going to get to working group 4 and 5. I think working group 2 is still working on its user stories, so I wouldn't necessarily review them like tomorrow as part of the working group 3 meeting. But there are already, I think, fleshed out user stories that can be looked at. So I'm with you, Sana. We could start this.
Start this and
we don't have to wait.
Make it every 2 weeks, and let's keep it going. Like we don't have to do it in a waterfall way, like Paul mentioned, right?
So
we can continuously do it.
Okay, so who'd like to attend? Where do we send a poll, right? Because we need to, if it's another meeting, then we need to schedule it. So it's about availability of people. So we can just take the action to create a poll and we'll go from there. People can input whatever time works for them.
On the document, on the work group 3, let's get feedback. Has to be volunteers from SIG automation and SIG architecture both, like representation. Because that would be a joint decision. And let's gather the volunteers, Alexi, on that same document, and then we can create the poll the way we have to create the other polls for the other 2 meetings.
Okay, so so to close up, what we'll do for that working group, 3.
Yes.
We'll go with the folks listed here, plus working group SIG 2. So whoever is interested in helping refine the scope for the release based on the user stories provided by SIG 1, join that meeting, and we'll put your name, here, and we'll get that schedule.
Alex, I have a question or a remark in general, right? See, for me, the user stories is one element of it, right? What you typically see is that it needs to fit into a framework or an architecture, right? To be able to do something with them, right? And for me, the thing that we didn't do in R2, see, I keep saying the same thing. In R1, we had a trial in November, right, where we did a POC, basically. And that basically became an R1 architecture, right, that we delivered, right? And if you look to R2, it's basically an evolution of that. And we added radio to it to a certain extent, right? So you can have, let's say, 100 user stories, as long as you don't have the breakdown to how it fits into a framework, right? We can adapt the framework, right? The challenge is as long as you haven't done that, it's hard to do anything because we can discuss hundreds of use cases in that meeting. But as long as you don't have the mapping towards something like that, we can discuss forever, but we are not going to move forward, in my view.
So if I'm
See what I'm
hearing you
saying?
correctly, yeah, most definitely I agree and I concur. We need an architecture. That's what I'm hearing, and I
Yes.
couldn't agree more.
See, you have to
So
decompose. So you have to decompose the user stories into components, right? That you are going to work on. And in my view, that is the most important part that we are not doing, and that is the work that has to be done. And it can be a continuous effort, not a problem. But that is going to determine what we will deliver and not, and that will also make sure that it becomes consistent and coherent. So it's because you can do 5 user stories in parallel and they basically don't work together. I believe that's not a good spend of our time. I rather do 3 and make them work together rather than do 5 and have them all independent.
so
That's my personal view.
no,
But my comment is basically is we can discuss user stories forever, as long as you don't have the mapping towards what we are going to deliver. We can discuss forever, and it's not going to help a release.
So who's
Or,
owning this? I mean, I understand what you're saying, Wim, and we need to make progress on that, but we need someone to being able to take this forward, right? So,
yes, so
because is this something that we would expect SIG 2, or this is something we expect working group 1 in SIG 1, or working group 3?
it has to be a combination. It has to be a combination between SIG 2 and SIG 1, in my view.
Perfect.
Alexi,
So-
that brings me to the point of cross-pollination between SIGs, and I believe that SIG, the working group 1, should also have representation from the SIG automation, because I remember an exercise where I was presenting an architectural design in the Nephew Summit, and I do remember that there were lots of contributions from both SIG automation and SIG architecture on that. So I think that's also a joint effort, and that's also evolutionary in nature. It would constantly be evolving, the architecture that we land onto. So I would ask for additional volunteers in working group 1 to represent themselves, because I think that would be a good exercise for some of these cross-pollination work to flesh out there.
Okay, but so I think I have a path. I have a path forward.
One of the options, I think, Alexis, because we have a lot of meetings already, from my perspective, is to try to flush it out in the working group meetings, right? And you basically, because at some point you have user story.
Yeah, that's what
unless,
that's it. That's exactly what I'm doing.
It's a chicken and egg problem, right? So we have two issues. On one hand, we want to have, SIG 1 at some point. So we are in this phase where, okay, we know what we would like to have in R3, right? But then you want SIG 1 to already focus what is the next phase, right? So what is going to be R4 and stuff like that. So you want, so there needs to be a transition phase in which you have to have a combination of SIG 1 and SIG 2, and you have to discuss let's say the building blocks, the architecture, a whole bunch of stuff, right? So how it works together. And then once that is more or less clear, I think SIG 2 is in the place to take it over and basically deliver the components to, let's say, deliver those use cases and so on based on the architecture, right? So that's kind of the process, and that's an iteration we can do continuously, right?
Yeah. So what I'm suggesting is let's take this as part of the working group 3 discussions, right? So we'll create something for it and we discuss in there. And I think we addressed pretty much what you said, Wim, and we start a discussion between the teams. Is this good with you? Okay. I just want to. It's in line with what you were saying, Tim.
The only thing that I have is yet another meeting, and I'm wondering whether we can.
Okay, yet another meeting.
Some time. Yeah, that's my only.
So let me discuss with Sana.
Worry. Yeah.
Because maybe we want to work in group. I'll discuss with Sana and come up with
Alexi, I think
suggestion.
we need to discuss it offline. Maybe we can merge them or do something about it and create some efficiencies in so many meetings. Okay.
So we need to move a bit. So I'm going to declare the user story template approved, given it's been approved by being adopted everywhere. So it's approved, right? I mean, if there is any pushback, please, well, you should have come up before. So if there is an improvement that you want to have on this template, please add comments in here, and we can definitely improve the template. But given all the user stories have been defined using it, I think we can just mark it as approved as a template. So please, anyone that comes up with user stories, follow that template. I just wanted to keep that one. That way it's done, and I want to keep a couple of minutes towards the end for this. So let's go to SIG, working group 4. I think Sandeep, you came up with a bunch of 4 user stories as part of the. Do you want to take us high level through some of what you did
high
here?
level. I'll take high level. Before that, I just want to have one clarification from the SIG one that all the things, all the requirement, or all the features which are going to be part of R3 are necessarily should have a user story. Is it true? Or can it come ad hoc in later point of stage?
Sandeep, your question
Sorry,
I mean,
sorry, can you repeat?
yeah, my question is that, I mean, whatever the user story or some sort of, let's say there is some features which are going to be part of the R3, they must come via this user story, isn't it?
That's a little bit the idea, right? Because this user
Right.
story will help us drive the release node. So
Okay.
So a little bit, yeah, but it doesn't have. It's not. I don't think there's a hard line in the sand, right?
Okay, so no, we in R2 we started working on some observability POC. So I think as part of some working group, we need to put that up to user story as well. So maybe I'll work with your working group 5 or something, right? Fine. So
okay, yeah, please do that. But I recall Subhash did create a user stories as well, right? For well, I can't say exactly based on the name, but there is a user story defined by working group 5. Please make sure to sync with Subhash as well.
Okay, for observability, I'll put it on user story. Okay, for user story 5, we mostly work in the R2 time, and all the meetings which we had was mainly dealing with Helm onboarding, toolings as such, SDKs, right, and kind of a user experience kind of thing which we trying to address in the working group 4. So few of the user story which I have put are related to the toolings, and few of them are related to the Helm charts and UIs as well, right? Whatever the UI enhancement which we could think about it to enhance the user experience is what I have tried to put there. And overall, there are one of the SDKs. I mean, we started with SDK meetings also in working group 4. So I have put one official user story for SDK to have onboarding Helm-based NFs, right? How is because we have a lot of POCs in that, but I don't. There is an epic for that in R2, but it is not going anything there. So I thought it's better to put it officially here so that it can be taken to the next release. So that's what I have put there as a high level SDK to onboard Helm-based NF, existing Helm-based NF, which are already in deployed mode, maybe kind of a brownfield, you can say that. So that's the one. Second is also about the SDK. We try to contribute in R2, but I thought we don't have time. So I mean what I have got information that it can be part of the R3 because we need more time to review that. So I thought it's better to put that officially here, and so that people can review it and decide whether it can be part of or it fits into the nephew or not fits into the nephew, or is it required for the nephew, and all those things can be discussed well before we start putting effort on that. So that's what I put my second user story to generate. I mean, this is the same thing which we have PR4 that generate the operator code from the existing Helm charts. So I thought it's better to put it officially here so that community can review it and decide on that before it actually gets pushed into the as part of the PR. So it's better to have a review and kind of thing is what I thought, right? Now, the third one is the couple of there are for the UI thing, like for example, a Nephew UI based package creation wizard, which we thought that going to be helpful. KBD package creation wizard, where we can actually add a lot of enhanced things, like for example, capacities, dependencies, and intent, right? Can be also added as part of the package creation wizard in the UI itself is what we thought that could be helpful, because many we don't know what kind of intent is supported in the current deployment, whether the interfaces can be created or anything else can be done. So if we thought that there is an automatic way to suggest in the UI that these are the intent is available as part of this deployment, and user can select that during the package creation, that could be great. That will be little error prone, I mean, free of errors with we thought, because people can have blueprints from somewhere else which we may not work in these deployments. So those kind of things we could avoid is what we thought. So I try to put those information as part of the third user story. And the fifth user story, fourth user story is about the status. Like for example, the status of NF, like once you deploy your KPD package, it gets headed and you have actual NF, right? That's the ultimate goal. So what are the status of it like? And also, is it, I mean, if you can show in the UI, in Nephew UI, that these are the NFs as part of these packages, right? Where there is a kind of a drop down or kind of expansion available for the users to see. I mean, these are the NFs, these NFs has come as part of this package. And also, if you can show some sort of a status in the UI itself for each NF, that it is working, it's not working, up, down, maybe some sort of a KPI information we can show in that in the UI for the each NF. That, I mean, that will obviously take help of observability and other framework. That could also help from the UI point of view for users to see how your KPTs or how your NFs are working. So these are the kind of overall user story which we try to fit in. And I request everyone to go through that and see how, I mean, it's feasible or not feasible. I think I take, yeah. So yeah, that's also maybe when I get a more feedback on that, I can work on that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sandeep. Any question for Sandeep, team? Okay, so Sandeep, as part of what we're going to come up with for working group 3, we'll definitely review the user stories. So question will arise. Thank you very much for the whole working group 4 to put these things up. And as we said, right, some of these things we know are continuing from R2, and some of these things will continue in R4 beyond. So let's keep that in mind as well as we're defining these user stories.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's take a couple of minutes to review. Oh no, we discussed last week. So working group 5, do we have Subhash on the call?
Yeah, hi Alexis, I'm here.
Yeah, do you have any updates? I know we discussed last time about your user stories, and that you were starting the discussion on a model for service assurance.
Yes, Alexis. So these two updates are there. About that user story, so the template we have already filled. So we are trying to expose the API so that will correlate intent with the resources, and the higher layer of service assurance system could use it. The Nephew's service assurance submodel, it can expose those functionality, and we are looking for the a review and any feedback. If someone could review it and give us the feedback, like what other things are needed, so that we are looking. And the second part, what we are looking around the deeper technical discussion, that is about the information modeling of the service assurance. So that what we are thinking here, that service assurance will affect the hydration process, and finally the CNF get deployed. So how it will get affected, like how we are going to configure the observability, how the action mechanism are going to be converted based on the service assurance model. So that those things are those ideas we are discussing and trying to make some document out of it. So yeah, mainly these two points we are discussing in our work group.
Okay. The goal is to document, sorry, the process or the information model. I missed that one.
Actually, yeah, we have started with the model so that we can understand what things are actually required and how we could impact the process of the hydration, so that we can configure all the nitty-gritty or all the things needed to assure the NF deployment and the service assurance of NF, so that we could assure. So those details we are actually doing it. So yeah, we are trying to
Okay.
document everything. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Subhash. So any question at him for the working group 5 here? And Subhash, anything that you need from the SIG one beside reviewing the user stories, but similar to what I just said to Sandeep, this is gonna we need to flesh out a working group 3 to get there. So it's gonna happen. Not just be a bit patient as we figure out these aspects, but we're gonna have more of a formal review provided as soon as we start working on this.
Yeah, of course. We actually needed the help from the work group 4 to get the more information on the modeling aspect, so that we can detail out the information model of service assurance. But yeah, still, we have started the discussion. Maybe we will feed back it to the work group 4, is what we think about the assurance model, and we can think from there. So yeah, we are working on it.
Okay.
Subhash,
Okay,
I
very
have
good.
a quick idea for you. When you are looking for feedback from another working group, both the working group 4 and 5 have their scheduled meetings. What you could do is that you could invite work group 4 to your working group meetings and dedicate a full session to this joint discussion, or use their slot to go into their meeting and review the action items that you want to review together. I think that's way you can do the cross-pollination and try to sort out some of the questions that you have with that specific work group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I
So
think,
that is a good idea. Yeah.
Just a point here. I think
Yeah.
as part of working group 4, I mean, Tal is taking care of the model, what I understand. Maybe he can help you on that.
Yes.
Sure, Sandeep. Sure, Sandeep.
I'll just add, modeling ends up being important for ORAN work as well. So I'm really, I do have a draft. I'm working to make it as comprehensive as possible as a start. So I believe it'll be done by tomorrow.
Yeah. Sure,
Okay.
Tal, we'll work with you on these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Subhash and Sandeep. I just reshuffled a bit. I haven't read your comment, Varda, and I want to go there because it seems to be something we wanted to discuss here. I'm just reviewing it now. So I think one piece of your comment is really about if we are to reschedule this meeting, be mindful about folks being in India. So yes, we can do that. And then the second one
Alexi,
is...
I'll get back to her on the first comment, and then we can iterate through the second comment as well. So I read that, Varda, I was waiting for the right time to be able to comment to your request. Okay. So do you mean that this time for the SIG 1 meeting in general, or do you mean any of the working groups that you're interested in, you want to participate, but the time is too late for you in India?
Yeah. It's actually for, not just this meeting, but for all. The general timing now, here is about 10:30 to 11:30. Currently it's 11:25. So it's better, some sort of things, a little bit early, or the reverse way, right? Mornings for us. But I'm sure, with Europe East, it's very difficult to find a slot. But if some better solution is possible, right, it'd be better. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll explain to you, but rather, I think when Kaushik was working very closely with this working group, he was working from India, and the time slot that we could land on with the Western time zone was something around 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and those were the only time slots we could work with. So now if you review all the working group calendars and even the nephew overall meeting calendars, 100% of our meetings, or about 90% of the meetings, are clustered in this early time zone for West Coast just because we wanted to accommodate the Indian time zone. So I think the challenge is the Western time zone and the Indian time zones, because some Eastern somewhere falls in the middle. So me and Alexi, when we create the tool, we'll make sure that we consider that aspect. A lot of the people in the Western time zone have 1 hour block for their schools. I have received that feedback a lot. So we are even missing out on the 8 to 9 a.m. slot. But at the moment, if you see, all the working group meetings are from 8 to 9 just to accommodate this time difference, I think, with the Indian time zone that we have at the moment here. So it's kept in mind. We are doing our best to accommodate a good time. And this discussion has happened in the TSC as well. And when the poll is created and when we receive these basically votes across a certain time stamp, it also shows the spread of how many people are actually participating from a specific time zone. They're more from Western time zone, then I think that poll somehow gets accepted, and that's how we land on those times. But we are not even creating a poll that would not match working time for India time zone, right? So we'll definitely keep it in mind. And you're just seeing that it's a struggle. It's an ongoing struggle to match the 2 time zones and find the best that works for everyone.
Yes, yes, definitely. I understand that. Yeah, we have a very narrow time frame. Yeah.
So
Okay,
we'll do our
so
best. We are creating new polls, and me and Alexi will keep it in mind to be able to find the best time that we could find for all of us to work.
Right, right, definitely. Yep, thanks.
thank you, Vereda. I have 2 minutes remaining, and I don't know exactly what your second comment is about. It seems important.
Right, right. I'll explain. See, a nephew as such, right, has many important constructs. Config as a data is completely new. We know only configuration as protocol, but here
Actually,
config is a data.
sorry, excuse me, Vereda. Can I interrupt you a minute?
Sure.
So we have 2 minutes. Where I was going is I'm not sure we can go through this now. I didn't have time to finish my sentence because I think it requires a bit of a discussion.
Right, right.
And so if you're okay, we're just going to take this for next week meeting.
No
and that
problem.
way we can take that and discuss it properly.
No problem at all, Alexis.
I'll carry this over the agenda.
It's something which can wait. It's very important, but not very urgent. So we will see that.
Well, I think this is part of the things we were discussing about architecture and various aspects. So I don't want to ignore it. That's why I put it there, and we'll get back to it if that's okay. Thank you, Verda.
Yeah, definitely.
The one thing I wanted to close on process improvement is my eagerness to create a board in Git for SIG1 to track actions. It's just the second time I'm running this meeting and actions are flying all over. And it's really difficult just for me to have a mental picture of what's going on. So hopefully everybody's fine if we create a board in GitHub to track these things. It's mostly going to be probably me and Sana working on that board, but it might be a way as well for us to delegate.
I have a big yes for that, Alexi. I'm very used to managing boards like that, and I think that's the only way my brain can also work. Me and Kaushik had discussed that at some stage, and I think we decided not to. But I feel we should. Again, we are the project managers of this particular
all right.
group here, and we will be more effective that way.
So I'll take the action of creating the board with Bala, and I'll input the various actions in the board to get it. So next week it's going to be a bit different. The experience we'll use a little bit of the GDoc and the GitHub board.
Right. And I'll work with you, Alexi. When we meet internally, I'll review the board discussion with you as well.
Yeah, we'll work these things together. All right, so we're 1 minute past the hour. Any closing comment? But we're already late. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. I think
thanks, everyone.
Packed agenda today. See you next week. And Tal, no worries. We are a welcoming community. Everything is contribution based, so whatever contribution is good contribution. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye for all.
Bye. Bye-bye.